This is the Education Business Podcast for consultants and business owners providing services in schools. I'm Claire Riley, and I'll be sharing how to start, grow, and scale your education business. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Education Business Podcast. It is a guest episode. Today, I have Amber J on the show, and we are going to talk about her transition from being a teacher to becoming a business owner, and the lessons that she's learned along the way. So if you're in that same position or you're wanting to be in that position, I know that you will resonate with some things and maybe you'll pick up a few tips as well. So let's just get to the interview. Amber, welcome to the Education Business Podcast.
Hi, Claire. Thank you so much for having me.
We love a good story on the Education Business Podcast. How did you leave teaching and become a business owner?
So I was a teacher for 12 years, and like most of that, I was teaching ESL. And in the last 2 years, that's when I decided to become a primary school teacher, which basically was just really, really different to my experience of teaching abroad, which I had actually really loved. Yeah, coming back to the UK and thinking, all right, I'm going to continue teaching, but so I'll do my PGCE and I want to do it in have a really secure job here, as ESL isn't that secure in the UK. But yeah, basically almost immediately, not almost immediately, but really soon on into it, I just realized this is really, really, really overwhelming, unsustainable, and it's just so crazy that everyone in my school is working this hard and it's normal. And I was looking around and it just didn't seem like people were that happy. I looked at I've always been a really ambitious person. And actually, when I was in ESL, I was an academic manager of 2 language schools. I was doing really well for myself. I also was lecturing at universities. So when I came back to the UK, I looked at the people that were above me, like senior leadership in primary school. And I just didn't want their jobs. It didn't look fun. It looked like more thankless than stuff that I was already doing. And it was just a real sign that maybe it was time for me to leave, which was a little bit, it was really difficult because I had literally put so much money into doing this PGCE. And then no sooner than a year later, did I decide that's it. No, I don't want to do it. But yeah, I think it was because I'd seen the contrast between what it was like abroad and what it was like here. Maybe it allowed me to really realize, perhaps sooner than teachers that have only ever taught in England, that this is not normal and this shouldn't be normal. And this is not what I want for myself. So yeah, I think coming to that realization, I still did it for 2 years before I left. And it was, one of my friends who kind of really helped me realize that I needed to leave when she said to me, we've been friends for a few years now, and every single time you speak to me, you're saying that this isn't what you want to do. That kind of really hit me. I was like, wow, I literally have been saying that every single time we meet, and I'm still doing it. So yeah, basically then I was looking for other things that I could be doing. What could it be? I had no idea about coaching, didn't really know anything about it. Having said that, I did have a friend who was a coach, but I even remember a few years back when he decided to become a coach, because he was a teacher before too, kind of being a little bit cynical. Yeah, what's he doing? What is this madness? And I think because I'd been judgmental of him, it made me judgmental of myself to do something like that too, when we're critical of other people, we're probably the most critical of ourselves. He had come to visit and it just, he did a bit of coaching on me, a bit of impromptu coaching. And it was clear, obviously, that I was really unhappy in my job, really, really unfulfilled, looking elsewhere, looking for what else I could do. That point down the line, everything about what he was doing was so appealing to me. He kind of said, I noticed that you're really interested in what I'm doing. Is this something that you'd want to do? And I kind of, again, was just a bit critical about myself. I can't do what you're doing. You've just started a business. I've only ever been a teacher. And also I've put so much into my teaching job, so much money, so much time, so much energy. Like that's kind of what my identity was. So we kind of left it there, and I didn't really think any more of it. But I suppose, well, I did think more of it. Like it slowly kind of was seeping into me over the next few weeks and months. And then I got pregnant. And when I got pregnant, we'd wanted to have a baby, and I knew I wanted a baby. But when I got pregnant, the thought of the fact that after I'd have this baby, I'd have to go back to my life as it currently is, teaching in this kind of unsustainable way. Burnout, like I feel like I was already burnt out by that point. It made me really miserable to think that that was going to be my life after I had a baby and, had gone on maternity leave, to come back to this. And I think then that was like a final turning point. Actually, I think I'd like to be a coach, because that job, like being a coach and starting my own business, actually would provide me with all of the freedom that I want for myself and for, like, especially moving forward as a mum. But also, like, it just seemed like an absolutely fascinating career, and something that, like, all of my teaching skills would be perfectly suited for. So yeah, that's kind of how I decided to become a coach. And yeah, I signed up to a coaching academy, handed in my resignation, because I basically just said, after my maternity leave, I'm not going to come back. And when people asked me why, and I said, oh, well, I want to be a life coach, I definitely had a lot of raised eyebrows. A lot of people being like, well, if I were you, I wouldn't, throw in the towel quite yet or burn your bridges at the school, because who knows if that's going to work out. And in my head, I was like, well, it's got to work out, because I am not coming back. But everyone thought that I was going to end up coming back, I think.
Thank you so much. I think it's interesting, like a number of points I want to pick up on that. I think it's quite common, actually, as females, that it's all around children. So I've shared before that I built Classroom Secrets for the children I never had, because I knew that I didn't want to be in that situation when I had children, just like you've said. And I just think it's interesting that you needed somebody to tell you. You already knew why it was like outside teaching in a UK school in a way that a lot of the listeners have experienced teaching. So you knew that already. You knew it wasn't right. You had this idea of it, but you still needed somebody to point out to you that maybe you shouldn't do it. I think there's this idea from us as society that, well, you're a teacher and that's a good job, so you should stay in it. And I had that, like, especially from my husband's family. Like, why would you not want to be a teacher? So-and-so does it and so-and-so does it. Why can't you do it? Not mentioning that they had different jobs and different schools and things, but I think that is really interesting. Maybe somebody's listening and they're waiting for somebody to tell them. On your coaching cynicism, I think as teachers, we are cynical of that. I thought, and I'd love to know your thoughts on it, but I thought when I was a teacher that a coach was there to help you get stuff done that you couldn't get done. And I'm a person who obviously writes lists because I'm a teacher and I get the stuff ticked off. So why on earth would I need a coach? And my mum kind of really gave me that idea of what a coach was. And then my first experience of coaching was the minister's wife, just as we got married, said, oh, I think you should have some life coaching. So told me I should have it rather than me needing it, and was always trying to find things that didn't exist, like falling outs between me and Ed. I was like, that's not it. That's not my issue. I don't need that. So it wasn't a great experience of coaching. So I'd love to know, when was it that you had that moment where you figured out that wasn't that?
Well, I think when I was talking to my friend, I realized from the kind of stuff that he was saying, what actually, what coaching really involved, which is actually, it's not leading. I don't know if you'd ever seen that episode of Peep Show. I'm a big Peep Show fan. And there's this episode of Peep Show where Jeremy, one of the main characters, just decides on a whim to become a life coach. And then he just gives this terrible advice to everyone that he life coaches. He ends up like sleeping with them as well and creating all this havoc. And I think that was like deeply ingrained into my view of what a life coach was. this person that just kind of gives like unsolicited advice. That is kind of what I thought as well. And then the more I spoke to my friend about it, the more I realized it's really nothing to do with that. And he was asking me these really powerful questions that were kind of delving deep into my psyche, it really got me thinking. And then before I actually signed up to a proper life coaching course, I signed up to just a free one, just to kind of like test the waters and see what it was like. And I learned a lot about it from there as well, like what it really was. But on top of that, just being really burnt out and miserable at school, I had started like reading a lot of books myself, like trying to figure out what to do next, trying to just kind of like get out of this mindset that I was in. And I think a lot of those kind of self-development books that I was reading, I realized actually that's all life coaching, isn't it, as well?
Exactly.
Yeah.
How have you found building a business with a baby?
You know what? Building a business with a baby is not easy. It makes me really like appreciate how much free time I had before I had a baby. But the thing is that I honestly think that building a business with a baby is so much easier than it would be if I was teaching with a baby. In fact, I think I say this a lot, but I actually think that pretty much everything is easier than teaching full time in a UK school. So having a baby, I found easier than teaching full time at a UK primary school. Building a business, I found easier than teaching at a UK primary school. Anything I put my mind to now, I find that easier. I find it easier than what I found teaching. So it's almost helped me with my resilience, the fact that I worked so hard and I put so much into this thing that really, I didn't really feel like I was being valued or thanked or paid fairly for. And now what I'm doing, I have so much passion for. So yeah, building a business is really hard and you do have to hustle and you do have to really put everything into it. But I'm doing it on my terms. I'm really passionate about it. I know that like the sky's the limit when it comes to my ambition, which I didn't feel before with teaching. I felt like, oh, well, I can get to head teacher, like senior teacher, head teacher. Do I even want that? And if not, then my salary is capped. So basically, building a business with a baby, I mean, I just think that everything is easier and more of a pleasure and more of a joy now than what it was before. And I just always remind myself of that.
Yeah, I get that completely. I mean, I started Classroom Secrets before I had a baby. But 2 years in, that's when I had the IVF. And so I suppose I had kind of 3 years until she was born. And that was tough. What was really tough was the second baby. And it's because lots of things collided at the same time. I think the hardest thing about it is the time restraints because it doesn't really go away as they grow older. It gets a bit better. So my daughter's 6 today, actually, as we're recording, my youngest. So 6 and 8, great, but there's a lot of school holidays. And the school day is really short. And if I do 2 school runs, I have between 9:15 and 2:45 to get everything done for 2 businesses. So I think it is about being realistic. But one thing that I feel like I've really tried to lean into recently is not letting it be an excuse either. Sometimes I think we can be slower on our businesses because we have other commitments, really. And I think it's not easy, is it? But it is fun.
One thing that I feel sometimes I get a bit resentful of, but I try not to be, is that, my partner, he's an ex-teacher, actually. He now works in the civil service. But, if ever there's a school holiday or my childminder is away or anything like that, or my baby is sick, it's me that has to stop working. It's just naturally, no, it's not even a consideration that he would stop working. It's my business that takes the hit. And I do feel that's frustrating sometimes, especially when I'm like on a roll and I really want to get this done and I've got these goals for myself, just having to, like you said, the Easter school holidays, my childminder was off for the whole 2 weeks. And it was frustrating because I was feeling all this momentum in my business and all this energy. And I just couldn't do anything. And instead trying to just be present with my baby and enjoy her just enjoy being around her, but there was a real conflict. And that was hard, dealing with that conflict of really wanting to work on your business, but also really wanting to be present with your family.
I love that you're bringing this up. Absolutely love it, because I had the same thing. So Ed did not join Classroom Secrets until our youngest was 3 or 4 months old. And I think it was a week before she was born. And I said, so we'd just got a new office. We were employing people in the team, was growing it quite significantly. And I said, you need to leave because we have the money in Classroom Secrets. You need to leave. But he liked his job. So he was like, I'll go part-time. So he went part-time. She was born in the June. He went part-time in the August. It lasted a couple of months. It was like, this is not working. You're not getting anything done at either job. And it was October when he actually joined us. And before that, I always took the hit. And I think sometimes they don't realise the pressure that you're under either, because there were times where maybe somebody was looking after one of the kids, they were ill, and then they couldn't have them, and it'd be last minute, and you'd have that momentum. Or I'd said, well, maybe the eldest could go to nursery an extra day. And Ed was like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Because he didn't want that for her, but not thinking, hang on a minute, that means that it affects Claire, that then affects the business. Like, it was never an intentional thing. It was just the consequences of that and not thinking of those things. And I absolutely, completely agree. And I used to be part of this founders group, and we recently went away. And I always think it's interesting because it's very male focused. So they don't always have the same kind of commitments that I do, even though they might be a similar age. They tend to have women at home who are doing everything. And so somebody in that position where they're not looking after their own kids most of the time still could describe the feeling of, he said, there's nothing worse than really wanting to do something else when your kids are there. And I thought, you're describing most of my life. It doesn't go away, Amber. I'm really sorry, but it doesn't go away.
It is, I know it's because obviously we have our own businesses, but generally it's that women, isn't it? Women being the default and men not really thinking about that.
Absolutely. And, I have a really privileged situation. So we do take it very equally. I do 5 school runs a week. Ed does 5 school runs a week, pretty much. We do split a lot, but I think it's that whole mindset of being CEO of the house. Like, I'm still CEO of the house. I'm still writing down everything we need to do. And he might do some of them, but he's not project managing it, which is not my favorite thing to do anyway. I just think it's so interesting. But that thing of the entrepreneur, because I think it's unique to entrepreneurship, when you love your kid, but you also really love, or you've got momentum in this thing that you really want to do. And it's so hard when they collide, which is all of the time. It never stops colliding. And I think the best days when I'm not feeling that collide is because I'm so burnt out that I know I need a break. So I actually do properly have a break. But you have to get to that point. It's this cycle. And it's really difficult to just give your mind a rest because it doesn't let you.
Man, I relate to everything. I think it's like trying to learn how to not get to that burnout point. That's an ongoing journey, right? Like trying to figure out how you can like create. Well, that's what I'm trying to do now, like building the systems into my business so that I'm not always, fighting for those hours like from my business so that I can rest. But yeah, it's a journey. I'm not there yet.
It is a journey. And I think that's the thing. It's like the third wheel, isn't it? So before kids, I do often ask myself and Ed, what did we do before we had kids? Because it feels like not a lot. When we have that third wheel, we can be on play or we can be on work. But then we've also got this other thing going on now. So we have to split the hours evenly. And I certainly feel very much like I have to fit business into school hours most of the time. And it doesn't feel like there's enough time to really create the kind of momentum sometimes. And you have to get really good at working out what to actually work on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that doing that kind of time audit, setting out your priorities, which actually is what I do with my clients, but I find it harder to do on myself. Yeah.
it's hard to follow your own advice, I think, sometimes. I mean, right now, I've just stepped into a new role at Classroom Secrets, which I am really loving, actually, and I can see how it's going to be amazing. But also, I've made commitments at Education Business Club. I don't want to default on them, so I have like the two things going on. Our school holidays starts in 4 weeks, I think. I know, I'm stressed. And so like I'm getting up an hour earlier a lot of mornings so that I can get stuff done. And I want to like support the team as much as I can. And I need to get stuff done. And I wanted to get ahead and it's not working. And it's just that constant thing. Like I don't think you properly get out of it in business. You go through seasons and you're always working towards getting yourself to a place where your business is running without you.
Yeah, that is what that's kind of, we talked a little bit about this before, but yeah, what my next year is going to be all about, being able to build my business in a way that I can take a step back.
So when you say take a step back, like how much of a step back are you looking to take?
Well, at the moment I'm a business coach, and most of my clients are teachers who are starting coaching businesses, but they're all one-to-ones, which is amazing. I love working so closely with them, but also it does take up a lot of my time, like the hours in the day, as well as kind of being on Voxer with them, going back and forth, helping them with their documents and things. So what I would love is to be able to, or maybe definitely have a group program working out, but also like a self-paced course, that people can buy, and then I don't need to be there at all. Because ultimately, yeah, I'm hoping to have another baby in the next 2 years, and I don't want to get to that point and then think, but I can't take, 6 to 9 months off just to enjoy my baby. I really want that for myself. So I think having that goal, having that reason why as well, is a real motivator for me to start building my business in a way that is more sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you're building value in your business as well. Getting to a point where you could sell it or it's valuable because you get the time freedom and the financial freedom, but you're not in there working all the time. So I think it's good to talk to you about your plans for creating more value in your business because, lots of people, they've got the full-time job, but they're worried about stepping into the next stage of how do they make it bigger than themselves. I think for your business, it is not more obvious, but more, don't want to use the word say. I think it's more of a sure thing because you're relying on yourself for the course and you're relying on yourself for the group program. Some education businesses, they've got to rely on employing people, which can be not harder work, but I suppose harder work as well at the same time because it's just a completely different way of doing things. So I think that makes it definitely something that someone would more easily commit to, if that makes sense, because a lot of it relies on you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because it is, I love the fact that my business is completely kind of self-sufficient in a way, like it's just me and what I put into it is what I'm going to get out of it. I don't need to, buy a load of products or have a space or, hire a team. Having said that, it can get a bit overwhelming at times, knowing that if I want all of these things, I have to be the one responsible for all of it, especially with the, we were talking about with the baby, with a toddler coming, and yeah, it can be a lot, but it also is super exciting, like it gives you it helps you kind of set clear goals for your future when you know that it's up to you to expand.
Absolutely. And also, sometimes I think goals are more possible. You can have a massive goal. And when I think about Classroom Secrets and the way that we went from like 120,000 to 1 million in 12 months, I think part of the mindset, because I've been analysing the mindset recently, part of the mindset was, well, we'll just keep going until it's a thing. Like when we're not accepting that it will ever fail. And when you've got something like the potential of having a baby, you know that you have to do it. You can't just think, well, it doesn't matter because I'm not that worried if I get that thing. You have to. And I think that makes you think differently about achieving the goal in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And it's actually interesting that you say that, because I think so many teachers, or often the teachers that I speak to, their biggest fear about leaving teaching is the fear of, leaving their salary. But for me, leaving my teacher's salary and not having the financial stability that it gave me, really, really made me, go for it, because there was just no way I couldn't make this work, just like you were saying. And still, it motivates me because this has to work. I need to be making X amount of money. And I'm not taking no for an answer, because I'm not going back to teaching and I don't have this security to fall back upon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting because I think some people thrive in that. And I had this conversation with the coach, not a coach that I work with now. And I came back to the fact of I'm better at driving for more when I feel I've got safety. It doesn't have to be big safety, but it has to be safety,
Right.
because I feel like I did well knowing that we had Ed's salary to fall back on. I just reinvested everything way back when, obviously. Can't do that now because we both work at the company. But it is interesting. I think a helpful thing to do is to understand your own mindset. Would you be driven by there's no other option because I'm fearful I don't have anything? Or are you driven by I have this safety pot so I can do that thing? Because it'll help you work out, do you need to get like 1.5 days supply a week? And, can you commit to that and then only do the bare minimum? And then you can build your business on the side. Or do you just quit everything and just like make it happen and give yourself 3 months of savings and you've got no choice? Which are you going to thrive with, I think?
Mm. And definitely, I think for me, it's a mixture of both. Like, something that I don't hear many people talking about, but for me, when I went self-employed, I went on Universal Credit, and they still do, actually. Well, they haven't for the last few months, and they're not going to moving forward. Now my business is kind of finally off the ground, but they've been paying 85% of childcare since May last year. So that gave me that security, knowing that I could send Daisy to childcare, knowing that I wouldn't need to worry about that huge expense so that I could work on my business. But then, and yeah, I suppose I had an element of financial stability because my partner works, but it was more like, we were really living on the breadline. So yeah, I do think I agree with you. Having an element of safety is really important, but then having that motivator of like, really, I'd love to have more.
Absolutely. And I think that's where it does help if you have two adults in the same household contributing to the same things, because that's when it gets tricky when you're, say, a single parent household and you've got to provide. And that can be really tricky to transition. I don't profess to be an expert in that because a lot of people do say to me, how do you make the transition from the classroom to a business financially? And I'm always really honest and say, well, I had that support and we just scale back. So I can't help you with that. But I hope you do find the help.
Yeah, I think there definitely is an element of privilege, isn't there? Like, you do have to have some support. I'm sure that some people can do it without, but it's really hard to do if you don't have any support coming from anywhere. And I feel for those people, single parents in particular, that don't have that. But yeah, I also think, if you want it that badly, you do find ways. I started off supply teaching a few days a week. We currently, we started doing it last year, but we still do it now because it's such a great money earner. We Airbnb our house once a month. And you find ways around it. And yeah, some people, there are more ways, and some people it's more difficult. But I think that mindset piece, like you were talking about, just knowing that you need to make it work, is super important. Because anything is possible if you really, really don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, I completely agree, but I totally have to sidestep. I love using Airbnb. But you Airbnb your house every month. Where do you go?
Sometimes I go to my parents' house, and sometimes we go on a little trip. like, make it a little fun trip away to see some friends.
Well, that makes complete sense. Like, you live by the seaside. Because I could completely do it. We live in Halifax and we've got the Peace Hall now. Like, it's the most, funky music venue apparently now because it's like an old Peace Hall outside. Yeah, and we can hear the music sometimes where I live.
You might get a lot of party goers to your house, whereas we get a lot of families.
Well, there is that, yeah. Certainly something to think about in the future. I'm going to journal on that one. Talk about a sidetrack. Obviously, coaching's your thing. Why is it really good to be a coach if you've been a teacher?
I honestly think that coaching is perfectly suited to teachers. Well, coaching itself is kind of asking really powerful questions, right? Asking quality questions that gets the best out of your, the people that you're asking the questions to. That's something that teachers know about so well. That's in order to be a really great teacher, you're not giving these like prescriptive lessons telling people what to do, but you're asking those deep questions. And I don't think anyone is able to do that as well as teachers, really. So I just think it really lends itself to the skills of a teacher. I mean, as well as that, like I combine coaching with mentoring. So I do coaching, but I also do kind of more like, telling people what to do or helping guide them as to what to do. Again, like a teacher does. So I actually think the job in itself is basically so similar to teaching, but outside of the classroom and in a way that's so much more like suited to your own skills, your own passion. And in a way also, like I said before, where your potential is untapped. Like you can charge what you like, you can work whatever hours you like. And I think that teachers are desperate for that. We're desperate for that flexibility and that freedom. So to be able to do a job where basically I'm teaching and coaching, but outside the classroom and in a way that totally suits me, I think that's the dream. And I think that's why that's why I'm so passionate about helping teachers make this transition, because I couldn't think of anything more perfect, really.
You've sold it to me. Oh, wait, I already do that. You're exactly right. So I do the same. I coach and mentor at the same time because obviously I need to be able to say, hang on a minute, I've done that. And here's this quicker way to do it at the same time as coaching. So sold. Thank you very much.
But also I think we're all, teachers, we go into teaching because we have that desire to help, that desire to make an impact. We're often kind of really empathetic people. Again, all of those skills just perfect for coaching.
Yeah. No, you're completely right. And wanting to see change in people. I think for me, I like to present opportunities and see how people take those opportunities and develop with those and change as a result. I think everybody can create the life that they want. And I like to present opportunities to help them do that. And sometimes it's helping them, sometimes it's a new role, all sorts of different things. But Amber, I just wanted to say thank you. I think we've had a really nice chat, and I hope that the education business audience can take some insights from it. I think tried to make sure that I'm interviewing people of all different backgrounds in business, and I think we've had a really insightful conversation.
Thank you so much. I have loved this conversation. Really, I have. Normally, I'm a bit nervous on podcasts, but I've loved this one. It's been great. Thank you.
If you've not listened to the Education Business Podcast before, make sure you go through and listen to all the different episodes. There's so much content here, you can learn so much. And if you want to go that little bit deeper on turning your business from a job that you love into a business asset, then join me at Education Business Club, where we learn everything you need to learn to grow your business up. Thank you for listening to the Education Business Podcast. To get more information to grow your business, sign up at educationbusinessclub.co.uk.